Okay, so we are starting to talk about squares and square roots and perfect squares today. And it's probably a term that you've heard before, and you may have even done some of them before. But in order to succeed in Pre-Algebra and Algebra 1, you really need to have a firm grasp on what this is. So a square is the product of a number in itself. So like 6 times 6 is 36. So 36 would be a square, okay? A square root is one of two equal factors of a number. So it's the opposite of a square. So the square root of 9 is 3 because 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, so 3 would be your square root. And the radical sign is the symbol used to indicate the square root of a number. See how we have this radical sign right now on 9? So that means the square root of 9, and then what times itself equals 9 is 3. So a perfect square is a number whose square root is a whole number. So 16 is a perfect square because the square root of 16 equals 4. 4 is a whole number, not a decimal or a fraction. So a perfect square has to be a whole number. Okay, you can put the square root of 15 in your calculator and it'll give you a number, but it's not going to be a whole number. Okay, so now let's look at perfect squares. Are the shaded portions squares? Yes. Okay, they are squares because their sides are all the same. This square has a side length of 2 units. This one has a side length of 3 units all the way around. This one has a side length of 4 units all the way around, okay? 4 is a perfect square because 2 times 2 is 4, okay? 9 is a perfect square because 3 times 3 is 9. Remember, a perfect square means that a number times itself equals that perfect square. 16 is a perfect square because 4 times 4 equals 16. So to know if something is a perfect square, you have to think, can I multiply a number times itself to get this number? If you can, then it is a perfect square. So like 36 would be a perfect square because 6 times 6 is 36. Now, remember we are going from squares to square roots. Square roots are the factors of perfect squares. Okay, a square root of a number is one of its two equal factors. Remember factors. Factors are the numbers that multiply together to get your number. So if you're looking for the square root, in this case it's the square root of 16, you're going to say the square root of 16, what times itself equals 16? 4 times 4, so the square root of 16 is 4. Okay, so in this bullet right here, 4 times 4 equals 16. So 4 is the factor or square root. Sorry, this stylus that I'm using is not the best one. Square root of, I didn't mean to put roots. Square root of 16. Okay. The symbol called a radical, and remember we touched on that on the first page where it had all the definitions, is used to show a number square root. So the square root of 4 right here is 2 because 2 times 2 is 4. The square root of 9 is 3 because 3 times 3 is 9. The square root of 16 is 4 because 4 times 4 is 16. Now the square root of 25 is 5 because 5 times 5 is equal to 25. And the square root of 100 is 10 because 10 times 10 is equal to 100. Okay, so using this information, you can go ahead and do this entire packet on squares and square roots, and you need to turn in the entire packet, okay? Because your notes was just a small part of it. So go ahead and fill out what we did on here, finish the packet, and you'll turn that in.